not sure what picture she's taking.
Put it in place and put in a little bit. Oh my God. Okay. So many different possibilities.
So the stretcher you saw that we have in the room is the predecessor to what we have now. Like I said, this was a big leap, and you saw I just turned on the power, so hopefully the battery is pretty good. Right, so now the stretcher hydraulically picked up the load, right? It picks up the load up to 700 pounds, right? A 700-pound patient does not fit on this stretcher. They're too girthy, right? Like they are too wide, right? But it'll pick up 700 pounds. So this mast over here is made to carry the cardiac monitor. So if I do a call where I can bring the stretcher in, there's lots of room, there's no stairs, the stretcher itself weighs about 150 pounds, then I've got something to carry my bags, I've got something to carry my monitor, right? And at the end of the call, if you see underneath, there's a net, right? So I can put my bags on the net as well at the end of the call. So if you're on the ambulance, there's a way to carry your bags without actually carrying them. Often. Not always, but often. And like I said, this is like really strong. So I weigh a good 230 pounds, and with the leverage, like I'm at the end of it. And it's lifting me up. Right? So anyway, the legs will extend. Battery's dead. So battery's a little low. Like I said, I just turned up the power to this.
So because it's electric, can you run into problems in the wintertime?
Just like this?
When it
So
gets too cold.
we trialed this and a competitor. There's essentially two manufacturers in North America. There's Stryker, which is this one, and there's Furno. So we trialed both machines. Stryker has been in North America with their power system for over 5 years. Furno came to the market, less than a year before our trial. And if I can tell you something about the layman's aspect of design, Furno did a horrible job. Why? Because they tried to make something fancy, right? So the way I compare the two stretchers is a bunch of designers and a bunch of engineers. On the Stryker side, they decided to design a fly swatter. So it has a stick, it has an area to hit the fly with, and you hit the fly. Job is work, it's done. At the other company, the engineers and the designers, they went, oh, let's build a fly swatter. All right, so we should put electricity in it to kill the fly. And then you need to attract the fly, so we should put a scent. And it had all these sort of add-ons that just made it prone to fail. And not only did it make it prone to fail, it was really sexy and like cool engineering. But you had to change everything about everything that you do every day. Whereas this, what Stryker did, they developed a way to lift the patient that would emulate what paramedics do every day. And I wouldn't have to change people's practice to use this new device. Where I think that other product went wrong with Furno is that you needed to change everything about everything you do when you lift and lower patients. Hopefully I've got another battery to bring this back inside. Any other questions?
What do you do if, I realize
Did you guys hear that? Dinner is in 10 minutes.
so it's fine for a 700-pound person, but a 700-pound person does not
Yes.
wider than this.
Yeah.
What do you do
Yeah.
bariatric?
So we have a bariatric unit in the city of Toronto. Yay. We have a bariatric unit, one in the east, one in the west. That the sides of this fold down this way and this way. So you get about this much on either side, right, of the stretcher. So it gets significantly wider. And the ambulance is, like I said, it's the other ambulance that's about a foot wider, and the stretcher fits in the middle instead of fitting just on the side. So that's how we would do those patients. We also have on that same bariatric unit, we have, it's really cool, it's called a hover mat. Have you ever played air hockey? Right? So air hockey, the table shoots air through little holes and makes the puck float. The hover mat works in the same way, but in reverse. So there's a cushion of air underneath the mat, and it lifts up the patient to whatever height you want them to be at, and you can slide them across the ground. So if we've got a patient that's way too large to be on the stretcher, we'll put them on the hover mat, and we'll drag them, or drag the hover mat to, we have a bus that's the same as a TTC bus, essentially, and it has a ramp that comes down the side. We'll drag them into the TTC bus, tie them down on the floor of the TTC bus, go to the hospital. We're lucky in Toronto, our bariatric population is not as large as it is in other cities, but we still have some bariatric patients.
But would you know before you were going to, if you're called?
Sometimes, yeah. Those patients obviously tend to have comorbidities.
Yep.
They tend to be sick, right? So usually we kind of know of these patients, and sometimes even when they call 911, we have the information. Rarely, because of personal health information protection stuff, that's rare that we can pair information to an address, but we can in some cases. So sometimes we know before going, sometimes we just don't, right?
Patients might disclose themselves.
The patient might say, yeah, you're gonna need that big stretcher. Sometimes that comes up on the phone call. Or again, he weighs 700 pounds, right? That happens once in a while, but it's pretty rare. Our bariatric transport unit, I think right now are doing 1 or 2 calls a day. And it's decreased significantly since we got this, right? Because now this, like I said, 700 pounds, I put this to the back of the power load and the power load system. Yeah, it locks from the inside. You have to go all the way around through the locker again. So the power load system has really decreased the amount of times we call the bariatric team to come. Different services have different ways of doing bariatric transports. In Peel, there's like this ramp on the back of the ambulance that it's locked. Oh, you're lucky. How that happened. There's a ramp at the back of the ambulance that you can load patients in and out. In Montreal, I don't know if they still use it. There was an ambulance that had an I-beam that would come out the roof, and it had a Hoyer lift on the ambulance, which is like what they use in hospital and nursing homes and stuff, right? So you put a harness on the patient, and the Hoyer lift lifts the patient up. So they had an ambulance in Montreal that had this giant I-beam to lift patients in and out of the vehicle. So the stretcher itself, big piece of equipment. It retracts, right? So I can make it a little smaller to fit in some elevators if I want to. Toronto has worked with, do you know the company Rowland? R-O-W-L-A-N-D. So Rowland designs and fabricates first response stuff. So they just designed a carrier for our oxygen tank, which does not exist in the market. So they're attaching it to the back end of the stretcher here. You can take it on and off, and it protects the oxygen tank yoke and everything. So it's funny because it never existed in the market, but the Health and Safety Committee in Toronto is the only paramedic service that said, we need something that protects the yoke of the oxygen tank. So right now it's being protected by sitting in the bags that I showed you, but to decrease the weights of the bag, we're adding it to the stretcher. We couldn't add it to the stretcher before having this power stretcher. Why?
Because you still have to lift it.
Because you would increase the weight of the stretcher, so it defeated the purpose, right? So, any questions about this? So when you hook it in, The two little arms that you see dangling down is what's going to pick it up. So underneath, the two little arms will come up.
It's very Star Trek.
Very Star Trek.
Like, it looks like a launching guy.
And then you bring it in. And it locks into place. The system between the stretcher and the power load system is about $40,000, $30,000 and $40,000. So just the power load system's a car, nice car too, not a Yaris or anything. Sorry? So what do paramedics do with the bags? So that's a good question. So you see the bench that's there, that's where the bags would go, and they use a seat belt to just secure the bags onto the bench.
Would that have the hook? Where would it go?
The monitor?
Yeah.
The monitor would go onto here. Yep, so we keep the equipment in here. Right, so we keep some equipment in there. Sometimes I keep students in here. Just if they've been bad. I would never do that. But yeah, equipment can go in there. There's also compartments on the side. So exactly where you're standing here. There's a compartment there that you can put equipment in. And then the last piece of equipment that I want to show you. And then the last piece of equipment. So this is what we call a stair chair. If you can figure out a better way of transporting a stair chair, that'd be amazing. Who's strong and wants to take this on? Weighs about 40 pounds. Zero volunteer. You want to try? Okay, take it out of there. It's like an awkward lift.
Yeah, it is.
Right? She's like super confident. She's like, I got this!
No, because like it's
Right?
sliding and then it's like it's not balanced.
Exactly.
Like
It's
the
not
top-
balanced. It's tough. So it used
The top is heavier.
the top is heavier. Yeah.
Yeah.
It used to be stored in the side cupboard, and you'd slide it out, right? So we've moved it to that door. Yeah, it's heavy.
My back immediately.
So what this is a chair that we use to carry patients. So what we can do is this track system will engage with the staircase, right? So if you're going down a flight of stairs, right? The tracks will go down a flight of stairs, and you don't have to lift the patient going down. You can just roll. It's hard on the flat ground, but you get the picture, right? So the tracks hit the staircase, right? And you roll down the staircase.
How does that work for patients that need to be like lying down, not sitting?
So patient who's lying down, I carry them in a backboard, or I prefer, because I was born before 1990, I prefer a pole stretcher. So just like a canvas with two sticks in it, and like hug the patient and go, right? I find that to be a lot less cumbersome.
You'd
and
have to keep
simple.
them off the stairs, like they're actually lifted up. The
Yeah,
whole time.
lift it up and just carry them down, right? But you could also, this is supposed to take the patient's head, right? So if they're unconscious, you're supposed to put this around their forehead, and it's supposed to hold their head up. I don't think I've ever seen it work.
What is your problem when you want to lift some patients? Because I think it's very dangerous lifting them.
Yeah, going up the stairs is super tough. So going up the stairs, you'd have like the patient's weight. This weighs about 35, 40 pounds. There is a similar version of this chair that has an engine. So you can put it on the stairs and press a button and it goes up and down. We have that chair on the bariatric unit, but that's the only unit that has those chairs. And to lift patients, I mean, you do something fore and aft, so I would get behind him, sorry, do you mind? And I would grab his arms, right? And I would lift him up, and somebody would grab his legs. Right, so I would get behind him and just lift him up. Somebody else would grab his legs and Yeah, so the handles, right? So the handles here, depending on what you're gonna go, if you're not going down the stairs, if you're going up a flight of stairs, you have to use those handles, so you can use it this way, or you can use it this way. And there's the same set of handle at the foot end that extend as well, so you can put them to wherever is comfortable for you to be at, right? So the further away you get from the patient, like the more weight you'll end up having to lift, right? So try to be close, but feet are disgusting.
Not the first time you mentioned.
No, man. I go for manicures and pedicures, man. It's been a while, but the pedicure is important. Pedicure is important.
Means a lot. I feel like you see a lot of disgusting things.
Yeah, feet are gross. Like there's not a lot of stuff that really annoy me. Feet.
It's funny though, I think that this is the same as the stretcher. So as a designer, I'm looking at that thing and I think it's somewhat designed.
Yeah, exactly.
But do you think that you know it's a cost thing, or it's a functional thing, or it's a work process thing?
This is interesting because the chair that we had before was literally just a chair with two handles and two handles. That's all.
So this is better.
Right? And so this is better because they added the tracks. So I don't have to lift it going down the stairs. But did they really solve the problem? Right? There's a few items that have hit the market with chairs. There's a company called Sirocco that made this really awkward thing that had three wheels at the back. So instead of one wheel at the back, it had like these three sort of in a triangle, and they would flip on each other going down a staircase, right? Part of what is difficult to me about this is there's like 1 million pinch points.
It's very dangerous.
There's a ton of places for body fluids to go and hide and have fun in, and it's utterly uncomfortable. Right? Like picture the 85-year-old grandma that has been vomiting for the last 3 days, who needs to go to the hospital, and I have no other way to take her out of her house. She's got horrible osteoporosis. She's got bone spurs coming out of everywhere, but I'm sitting her on. Right?
So for you guys, it's an example, and we've seen it all the way through, that the solutions are often made from flat materials. Flat materials are cheap and they're formed rather than purpose constructed materials that might be molded or expanded foam or whatever. There's so many other manufacturing processes that would allow it to be comfortable and safe and use things, but that's made of cut off straight flat material.
I think it's more offensive.
It's so tough for lifting. It's better to be a fabric maybe.
But you also want it to be cleanable.
Yeah, something to stretch.
And that's where I go back to the basics. Me, I like the pole stretcher because it's a canvas and I put 2 poles through it.
And it forms.
Gets the patient, I leave, done, right? This to me is cumbersome. I hate using it. That's just me.
We actually use a system very similar to this. I work in film and
Yep.
we use a similar system for moving refrigerators, like vending machines. It's the same idea.
Yeah, it's a dolly with things on the back.
This looks like a little bit more comfortable.
Not much. Like you could carry Hannibal Lecter on this, no problem. Right? But it's interesting. I don't know if the firefighters have their chairs. Yeah. So this is what a firefighter sits in every day. Just so you know. So they have to carry their oxygen tank. So how did they design it? They designed a hole in the chair that hooks the oxygen tank. So the firefighter would be like this, right? With the oxygen tank behind them in their truck. Right? Does that look comfortable?
No.
Right, so this is